Hey Wargamers, MiniGamePainter here. I'm just going to go over a tactical of the most recent Space Marine versus Tyranid battle. This is going to be a really short version, no dice rolls or anything obviously, just to kind of go over some of the tactics that I used, as well as maybe guessing some of the tactics that my opponent used. For the full list of armies, you can click on the link below and go to the first version, and they have obviously a breakdown in the thing. But this is just a turn-by-turn kind of how we moved. See if you guys like this. If you like these kinds of videos, give it a thumbs up. If not, just let me know and I can just, stop making these. But this is just a quick, the reason why I did the things that I did. Anyways, so on to turn one. It was Vanguard Strike. This is green team. This is the Space Marines. So he was on that side. The blacks are either buildings or some sort of ruins. And then obviously I had the Vanguard Strike right here, which I couldn't quite squeeze into that building right there. So turn one, Space Marines actually had the first turn, and what he did was he actually moved his land speeder, represented by S, moved over. This land speeder over here, he moved it down here. His Razor, he moved over just a little bit. His troops, he moved out like this, and this troop, he moved kind of through the building and ended up right here. So he actually was relatively aggressive on his first turn. His Dread, he popped out into the open, and his Predator actually stayed put. His Dev group stayed put in the building. They're actually on, I think it was the second and third floor here. And then the snipers were held in reserve by accident. On his first turn, he actually had his speeder hit my Tervagon and took some damage here. So he actually got a good angle to make sure that my Tervagon didn't get any cover. But then I actually had a Venom Thorpe that had a 5-up cover anyways. Didn't really help too much anyway. The Tervagon lost a wound there. The Razorback with his Pedro Cantor and his little group of guys also took a wound out. His troops moved over, didn't really have too much to shoot on. And his Dreadnought moved up, shot this Tervagon, which actually should have been more like right here. He actually had a pretty clear shot to hit with no cover. But again, I had a Venom Thorpe actually saved his butt. His Speeder came over here, did his Assault Cannon and his Melta into the Tervagon, and that 5+ cover saved it again. So turn one wasn't too eventful for the Space Marines. We'll now switch over and we'll do my turn of the first turn with the Tyranids. Alright, turn one with Tyranids was pretty straightforward since he was very aggressive with his 2 speeders. I figured that we needed to take those out as soon as possible because those were going to be the things that takes down my monstrous creatures. So my Tervagon spawned and moved towards the speeder, and the Tervagons, we'll just call them by G for Gaunts, spawned and went towards the speeder. The Venom Thorpe followed, just closely trying to stay out of line of sight in order to keep him alive. The Termagants in the building here just stayed on the objective, which I forgot to. So there was an objective there. There was an objective here. One in this building. And one behind here. Those were the objectives. So these Tervagons just stayed put. This Flying Hive Tyrant flew out to here. And he flew. These Tervagons moved up. I spawned more Gaunts. The Venom Thorpe moved up. So that was the movement in my first turn. What I was trying to do is since he castled up on this building right here, I wanted to get these 2 objectives, as well as trying to swoop around and get this objective, and maybe even just crush them in the middle with monstrous creatures or whatever Gaunts I had left over. The Hive Tyrant was trying to take takes most of the shooting in order to let everything happen. And one thing I did forget is that Predator actually instant killed a couple of these Raveners, which the Raveners moved because they don't get held up by difficult terrain. They move through the building here. Alright, so that's a movement. So the Gaunt shot the speeder, took down one whole point off it, and then the Gaunts did nothing to the speeder up here. This Tervagon actually took, I believe, one whole point off. And the Hive Tyrant shot the demolition of the rocket group, took down 2 Marines, which was the #1 threat to the Hive Tyrant. So I tried to take out as many as possible, but it was relatively unsuccessful. So again, turn 1 wasn't the most eventful. But what ended up happening is that these Gaunts ended up assaulting this and knocking out the speeder. These Gaunts ended up attacking and knocking out this speeder. And this Tervagon didn't make it into the assault, so these Gaunts were way out on this hill over here. So that was kind of an overlook on my part, but ended up being successful. The Hive Guard, shooting through this building right here, ended up knocking out the Dreadnought, which was first blood. And oh, I also forgot to mention that the Raveners actually assaulted this group of Marines, and there was only 2 Raveners left, so it didn't do a huge damage, but I ended up winning the combat, and they ended up just staying in combat. So that wasn't too eventful, but at least it kept the Raveners out from being shot, because that's the only thing that matters. So that was pretty much it for turn 1 Tyranids, which was a pretty good turn. I got rid of the speeders, which were the main threat to my monstrous creatures. The only things that I left over that would really hurt my monstrous creatures is this Predator, the Dev Group, and this Razorback full of Pedro as well as las cannons. So we'll move on to turn 2. Turn 2 Space Marines. These troops moved up a little bit. The Razorback Pedro and his squad of minions got out, and they had some flamers, so they got to have a little bit of fun. The snipers did not come in this turn, so they're just camping out over there in reserve. And what they did was Pedro and his squad flamed and took out this entire group. And the rest of the game, this turn, was that these troops shot the Hive Tyrant, didn't cause any wounds, but caused a grounding test of Corset, which it hit the ground. And then the Dev Group and the Predator ended up knocking him out with just an absolute disgusting ending. And that was the main. For the Raveners actually ended up killing these troops off. And, well, it didn't kill them off. What happened was that I won combat, and they ended up running, and they ran off the board. So that was a lucky win by me. And then the Raveners actually went towards Pedro's group. So they moved a little bit this way after they won combat. So that was the main thing that happened on that turn. So Tyranids turn 2. Tyranids turn 2. These Gaunts ended up moving up to the corner of the building. Tervagon ended up moving straight up, as well as the new Gaunts that it created. And the Venom Thorpe actually went into the middle in order to give that bubble to all these units that were right here. So that worked out. The Trigon Prime ended up landing right down here. And the Spore Pod landed right here. And the other set of Gaunts got out with their Devourers, which they get 3 shots each, which is very helpful. This Trigon ended up spawned more Gaunts, and then moved up slightly, and so did the Venom Thorpe. So that was for the movement. For the shooting, these Gaunts ended up shooting into these troops right here. Didn't do as much damage as I thought they were going to do, but oh well, what are you going to do? And the pod tried to attack them as well, didn't work. The Trigon Prime shot into the dev group, ended up knocking out a couple more, and they ended up losing leadership. The Raveners ended up assaulting, and so did these Gaunts. Afterwards, the Raveners assaulted Pedro's group, and the Gaunts tried to assault, but failed the charge, which I believe was like a 8 or 9 inch range. So that's ended up doing. And this was the turn 2. Turn 3, Space Marines. These troops moved up, Pedro moved over. These dev group were falling back, that they regrouped. The snipers finally came in, they actually popped in right there. And this turn, Pedro and this troop ended up shooting these Gaunts down to like barely anything. The Predator shot the Trigon, the dev group shot the Trigon, and the sniper shot the Trigon. Only got a few wounds, I believe it was the last canyons. And the Razorback actually shot. So that was just kind of a repositioning. And then what he ended up doing is actually, he saw that I was trying to squeeze him, so he kind of rolled back into getting his units together. Number one, because Pedro gives you an initial advantage by being near him. And then with that advantage, he ended up assaulting this group of Gaunts. With the end of his turn, there was one Gaunt left in this group holding this guy up. Pedro was sitting out in the open, and the Razorback was moved over just a little bit. So he was just moving his Razor so that he could just continually trying to take down this Trigon, because it was a heavy support, so it was worth 1 point, plus he was line breaker, and so that was a big point right there. Now on Tyranids turn 3, we were just trying to close in as much as possible. These Gaunts moved forward. This Turvagon spawned more Gaunts, which moved up here. Or actually, I'm sorry. They went into this building to hold that objective. Then he moved up. The Venom Thort moved up. These Gaunts actually moved to here. This Turvagon spawned more Gaunts here. And then they moved up. This Trigon Prime moved to his Predator, and that was, and then these guys moved up and captured the objective. So right now the whole splitting up in the middle and trying to outflank him in 2 different directions seems to be working on this particular game. The reason why I kind of cut the corner here is that I was on fire rolling for Termagants, so why not just go for it if I could. Normally Turvagon corks either the first or second turn. You usually average probably about, I don't know, 15 to 20 Gaunts. Right now I believe I was at 59, so I was way over the normal on the Termagants. So during this turn, so at the end of the Tyranids turn, this Gaunts got in with this Gaunt and started tearing up these troops, but they ended up standing, so they did pretty good. This Gaunt group failed to get that charge. This Trigon Prime went over and just completely obliterated this Predator. And then these Gaunts tried to assault Pedro, but it was a little too far. So this is kind of how it ended up on Tyranids turn 3. On the Space Marines turn 4, Pedro moved towards this group a little bit more. The Razor moved over, shot at the Tyranid Prime, or not the Tyranid Prime, Trigon Prime, and the snipers sat there and just shot as much as they humanly could. The dev group was gone, and it was looking pretty good for the Tyranids. Now on Tyranids turn 4, spawned another set of Gaunts, and we all moved up. this battle continued, and it came down to one Gaunt in this group, one Gaunt in this group, and this finally went in and helped finish off. And this Venom Thorpe went in and attacked him. This Trigon Prime went over and completely slaughtered those snipers. So at the end of turn 4, it was looking pretty bad for the Space Marines, and then in turn 5 and most of the other turns after that, these Gaunts moved up, claimed this, which was contested by this group right here, and then Pedro just turned around with an epic last stand, charged these two Gaunts. Now and then Pedro ended up dying in a challenge with this Tervagon, who had a better initiative than he did with his Power Fist. So overall, the tactic of starting a front here, and then kind of going around and crushing ended up working. Couple of things that needed improvement was the Hive Tyrant for 260 points. Just came out, killed 1 or 2 Space Marines, ended up just dying horribly. The Raveners, I could have put better coverage over here because 2 of them got insta-killed right off the bat. Those are my main mistakes. I didn't check the angle from this original Predator over here, which I should have. I was hoping this corner right here would have given them something, but I was trying to spread out at the beginning as much as possible because Pedro has that orbital bombardment, which he didn't end up using, which could have been helpful at the beginning, either wiping out the Raveners completely or taking these Termagants off the objective or something. But either way, it was a great game. Tyranids are still a very strong force. They just overwhelm in numbers, but the number one MVP of that game was definitely the Tervagants. We spawned 74 extra Gaunts, which was what, 370-ish points. So realistically, this game was 1,870 points versus 1,500, and you know, that's really hard to battle against. So it was a great game. Hey, with these type of little videos of either a Tactica or a drawn out, let me know if you like them. I was just kind of bored and made a quick video just to see how you might like it. I know mini war production value could always go up, I know that, but let me know how you think. So this was a great game. Hope to have another one maybe this week. It is the holiday season, so we'll see. Once again, have a good day.